The observation deck of the Stellar Wanderer hummed with quiet energy as Captain Marcus Cole studied the star charts projected before him. His weathered hands moved across the holographic display, tracing the path his ship would need to take through the Vega system. Behind him, the soft footsteps of his first officer broke the silence. "Captain, we have a problem," said Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka, her voice steady, but carrying a note of concern that Marcus had learned to recognize over their 5 years of service together. Marcus turned from the display, his gray eyes meeting hers. "What kind of problem?" "The consortium has just transmitted new data about our destination. The Kelrath mining station has gone dark. No communications for 3 days." Marcus frowned. The Kelrath were one of the newer members of the Galactic Trade Alliance, a species of patient, methodical beings who had spent centuries mastering the art of asteroid mining. For them to lose contact with a major station was unthinkable. "Any distress signals?" "None. That's what makes this strange. The station simply stopped responding." The captain walked to the main viewport, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. The Stellar Wanderer was a human exploration vessel, one of dozens that Earth had sent into the cosmos after first contact with alien life 30 years ago. Their mission was simple: explore, document, and when necessary, assist. The ship carried no weapons beyond basic defensive systems. They were explorers, not soldiers. "Set a course for the Kelrath station," Marcus said finally. "If something has happened to them, we might be the closest ship that can help." Yuki nodded and moved to the navigation console. Within moments, the ship's engines powered up, and the stars outside began to shift as they changed direction. The journey to the Kelrath system took 4 days at maximum speed. During that time, Marcus gathered his crew in the main briefing room to discuss what they might find. The Stellar Wanderer carried a crew of 42 humans, each chosen for their expertise in different fields. There were scientists, engineers, medical staff, and pilots, all united by a common desire to push the boundaries of human knowledge. Dr. Alina Reyes, the ship's chief scientist, displayed what information they had about the Kelrath station. It's a Class 4 mining operation, positioned at the edge of a dense comet field. The Kelrath chose this location because the comets contain rare minerals that are extremely valuable for faster-than-light drive construction. "Why would anyone put a station near a comet field?" asked Chief Engineer Thomas Park. "That seems unnecessarily dangerous." Alina smiled slightly. "For most species, yes, but the Kelrath have developed navigation systems that can predict comet trajectories with remarkable accuracy. Their ships can move safely through fields that would destroy any other vessel." "And yet their station has gone silent," Marcus said thoughtfully. "Could something have gone wrong with their prediction systems?" "It's possible," Alina admitted, "but unlikely. The Kelrath are extremely careful. They've been doing this kind of work for over 1,000 years. The discussion continued for another hour, covering possible scenarios and response plans. By the time they finished, Marcus felt confident that his crew was prepared for whatever they might find. But a small voice in the back of his mind whispered that nothing could truly prepare them for the unknown. As they entered the Kelrath system, the first thing they noticed was the debris field. Thousands of small objects drifted through space, glinting in the light of the distant star. Marcus felt his stomach tighten as he realized what he was looking at. "Are those ship fragments?" Yuki asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," Alina confirmed, her fingers flying across her console. "I'm detecting debris from at least 20 vessels, all Kelrath design." 20 ships, Marcus breathed. What could possibly destroy 20 ships? The answer came moments later when their sensors detected the comet field ahead. But this was no ordinary field. The comets were moving in patterns that defied everything Marcus knew about celestial mechanics. They swirled and collided, creating a wall of destruction that blocked access to the station beyond. "That's impossible," Thomas said, standing at his engineering station with wide eyes. "Comets don't move like that. They follow predictable orbital paths." "These aren't following any path," Alina replied. "Something is affecting their trajectories. I'm detecting some kind of energy field permeating the entire area." Marcus studied the chaotic dance of ice and rock before them. Somewhere beyond that deadly barrier, the Kelrath station floated in silence. If there were survivors, they were trapped. "Can we go around?" he asked. Yuki shook her head. "The field extends for millions of kilometers in every direction. Going around would take weeks, and we don't know if anyone on that station has weeks." "Then we go through." The bridge fell silent. Every officer turned to look at their captain, with expressions ranging from disbelief to fear. "Captain," Yuki said carefully, "the Kelrath built ships specifically designed to navigate comet fields, and 20 of them were destroyed. We're an exploration vessel. Our hull can't withstand impacts from debris that size." "You're right," Marcus agreed. "A direct approach would be suicide, but I'm not planning a direct approach." He walked to the navigation console and began inputting commands. The display showed the comet field in detail, each tumbling mass of ice and rock tracked by the ship's sensors. "Look at the pattern," Marcus said, pointing to specific clusters of movement. "The comets are moving chaotically, but there's still a rhythm to it. See how this group here moves in a spiral, and this one over here follows a wave pattern." Alina leaned closer, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "You're right. The movements look random at first, but there are underlying patterns. The energy field must be affecting them in predictable ways." "Exactly," Marcus said with a grim smile. "The Kelrath tried to predict individual comet paths like they always do, but this situation is different. We need to predict the pattern of the pattern." "That's extremely complex," Thomas pointed out. "Our navigation computer would need hours to calculate a safe path." "Then we won't use the computer." Marcus turned to face his crew. "I'll fly us through manually." The silence that followed was absolute. Manual navigation through a comet field was considered impossible by every species in the galaxy. The reaction times required were beyond what any known being could achieve. "Captain," Yuki said slowly, "with respect, humans can't process information fast enough to navigate that field. We would need to react to dozens of threats every second." Marcus smiled, and there was something in that smile that reminded his crew why he had been chosen to command humanity's furthest-ranging exploration vessel. "That's what everyone says about humans, that we're too slow, too fragile, too limited. But they forget something important about our species." He sat down in the pilot's chair and began warming up the manual controls. "Humans evolved as hunters. We spent millions of years tracking prey across savannas, reading the movement of animals, predicting where they would go. Our brains developed to find patterns in chaos, to anticipate movement before it happens." His hands settled on the control sticks, and his eyes fixed on the tumbling comets ahead. "Everyone else sees random destruction out there. I see a puzzle, and humans have always been very good at puzzles." The Stellar Wanderer's engines flared to life as Captain Marcus Cole prepared to do what every other species in the galaxy considered impossible. Behind him, his crew watched with a mixture of fear and something else, something that might have been hope. The comet field waited, a swirling wall of death that had already claimed 20 ships, but Marcus wasn't looking at death. He was looking at the spaces between the comets, the moments of stillness in the chaos, the pattern hidden within the pattern. He pushed the throttle forward, and the Stellar Wanderer plunged into the storm. The first comet came from the left, a spinning mass of ice and rock that would have crushed a smaller ship. Marcus barely seemed to move, but the Stellar Wanderer danced aside with centimeters to spare. Another comet approached from below, and the ship rolled smoothly around it. Yuki watched her captain with growing amazement. His eyes were half closed, and his breathing had become slow and steady. He wasn't reacting to the comets as they appeared. He was anticipating them, his hands moving the controls a heartbeat before each threat materialized. "How is he doing this?" Thomas whispered. Elena shook her head slowly, her scientific mind struggling to process what she was witnessing. "I don't know. I've never seen anything like it." The stellar wanderer wove through the field like water flowing between rocks. Left, right, up, down. The ship moved in a continuous dance that seemed almost choreographed. Marcus's face was calm, peaceful even, as if he were meditating rather than performing the most dangerous piloting feat in galactic history. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours to the watching crew. The ship took minor hits, glancing blows from smaller debris that made the hull ring like a bell. But the major impacts, the ones that would have torn them apart, never came. Marcus avoided them all. Finally, impossibly, they emerged from the other side of the field. The Kelrath station floated before them, dark and silent but intact. Marcus released the controls and let out a long breath. His hands were shaking now, and sweat covered his face. But when he turned to face his crew, he was smiling. "See," he said quietly, "just a puzzle." Yuki stared at him for a long moment, then shook her head in disbelief. "Captain, what you just did was impossible." "It was necessary," Marcus corrected. "There's a difference." He stood up from the pilot's chair on legs that trembled slightly. "Now, let's find out what happened to the Kelrath and see if we can help." The docking procedure was standard, at least. The station's automatic systems were still functioning, and the stellar wanderer connected to an auxiliary port without difficulty. Marcus assembled a boarding team of 10 crew members, including himself, Yuki, Elena, and their chief medical officer, Dr. James Chen. They entered the station with flashlights and portable scanners, moving through corridors that should have been bustling with activity. The air was breathable but cold, suggesting that life support was running on emergency power. And everywhere they looked, there were signs of panic: abandoned equipment, scattered personal belongings, doors left open. But no bodies, not a single Kelrath remained on the station. "Where did they all go?" James asked, scanning the empty corridors with his medical equipment. "I'm not detecting any biological remains." "They evacuated," Elena said, studying a terminal that still held power. "According to these logs, they tried to flee when the comet field went crazy. But their ships," she trailed off, and everyone understood. The debris field they had passed through told the rest of the story. Marcus felt a cold weight settle in his chest. Thousands of Kelrath had died trying to escape this station. Their ships, designed specifically for comet navigation, had failed them completely. "What caused the field to change?" he asked. Elena continued reading the logs, her face growing paler with each passing moment. "It wasn't natural. Someone did this deliberately." "Someone?" Yuki demanded. "Who would destroy a mining station?" "I don't know who," Elena replied, "but I know what they used." She pulled up a schematic on the terminal display. "The energy field affecting the comets is being generated by a device planted deep in the field's core. It's using some kind of gravitational manipulation technology to alter the comet's trajectories." "Why?" Marcus asked, the cold weight in his chest turning to anger. "What could possibly justify killing thousands of people?" Elena shook her head. "The logs don't say, but they do mention something interesting." She highlighted a section of text. "Before the chaos started, the Kelrath detected something buried in one of the larger comets, something artificial. They were preparing an expedition to investigate when the field went active." Marcus processed this information quickly. Someone had hidden something in the comet field, something valuable enough to kill for. When the Kelrath discovered it, the trap was sprung. "Is the device still active?" he asked. "Yes, it's maintaining the chaotic field right now. If we could disable it, the comets would eventually return to their natural orbits." "Then that's what we'll do," Marcus decided. We'll find this device and shut it down. Captain, Yuki said carefully, we barely made it through the field once. Going back in, deeper than before, to find a device we can't even pinpoint. I know, Marcus interrupted. It sounds impossible, but somewhere out there beyond this station are 20 ships full of debris. Debris that used to be living beings with families and friends who will never know what happened to them. If we can shut down this device, we can at least recover their remains, give them a proper memorial. His crew exchanged glances. They had served with Marcus long enough to know that his sense of duty extended beyond mere survival. When he saw wrong, he fought to make it right, regardless of the risk. Besides, Marcus added with a slight smile, I've already done the impossible once today. What's one more time? Yuki sighed, but there was pride mixed with her exasperation. I'll have engineering start analyzing the energy signature. If we can narrow down the device's location, we can at least plan a route. Good, Marcus nodded. In the meantime, Alina, I want you to search the station's records for anything else that might tell us who set this trap and why. James, set up a medical bay in case we find survivors. Survivors? James asked skeptically. The station is empty. The station is empty, Marcus agreed. But there might be people hiding in the field itself. Emergency pods, damaged shuttles, anything. If someone is alive out there, we need to be ready to help them. His crew moved to obey, each knowing their role without further instruction. As they dispersed through the silent station, Marcus stood alone in the main corridor, staring out a viewport at the deadly field beyond. 20 ships destroyed, thousands dead, and somewhere in that chaos, a device continued its grim work, ensuring that no one could enter or leave this system. Someone had created this trap, and Marcus intended to find out who. But first, he had to survive another trip through the impossible. The analysis took 3 hours. Thomas Park worked with Alina to map the energy field's patterns, identifying the point of origin with increasing precision. Finally, they gathered on the Stellar Wanderer's bridge to present their findings. The device is located here, Alina announced, highlighting a point deep within the comet field. It's buried inside the largest comet in the cluster, which the Kelrath had designated as C-117. That's almost at the center of the field, Yuki observed grimly. The chaos will be worse there. Actually, no, Thomas said, pulling up additional data. The device creates the chaos at the edges of the field where it pushes comets into unstable orbits. But near the center, where the device itself is located, the comets are more stable. They're being held in place, protected almost. Protected, Marcus repeated, to prevent accidental damage to the device. Exactly. If we can make it to C-117, we should have a relatively stable platform to work from. How do we reach it? Alina and Thomas exchanged uncomfortable glances. That's the problem, Alina admitted. The path to C-117 is even more chaotic than what you navigated before. The computer estimates a 0% chance of survival for any known vessel. The computer doesn't know what I can do, Marcus said quietly. Captain, Alina continued, her voice softening, what you did before was incredible. Beyond incredible, really. But this would be even harder. The distance is greater, the chaos is worse, and you would be fatigued from the first passage. Your reaction time will be compromised. Marcus was silent for a moment, considering her words. She was right, of course. He could feel the exhaustion in his muscles, the slight tremor in his hands that hadn't fully stopped since their first transit. Going back into that field would push him beyond any limit he had ever faced. Is there another option? He asked. We could wait, Yuki suggested. Send a message to Consortium headquarters, request a proper rescue mission with military escorts. How long would that take? Weeks at minimum, perhaps months, given how remote this system is. Marcus shook his head. And in that time, whoever set this trap might come to check on their prize, Or someone else might try to pass through the field and die like the Kelrath did. No, we can't wait. He straightened his shoulders and looked at each of his officers in turn. I'm going to try, but I won't order anyone else to come with me. This is strictly voluntary. Yuki stepped forward immediately. I'm your first officer. Where you go, I go. Thomas raised his hand. You'll need an engineer to disable the device. Elena nodded firmly, and a scientist to study it. One by one, the bridge crew volunteered. When the final count was complete, not a single person had chosen to remain behind. Marcus felt a surge of pride that temporarily washed away his exhaustion. All right then, he said, settling into the pilot's chair once more. Let's go solve another puzzle. The engines powered up, and the stellar wanderer once again faced the deadly field. This time, Marcus knew what to expect. He understood the rhythm of the chaos, the pattern beneath the pattern. But understanding and surviving were two different things. He took a deep breath, released it slowly, and pushed the ship forward into the storm. The first few minutes were similar to before. Comets spun and collided around them, and Marcus wove between them with practiced grace. But as they penetrated deeper into the field, the chaos intensified. The spaces between threats grew smaller, and the margin for error shrank to nothing. Sweat poured down Marcus's face, but he didn't notice. His entire being was focused on the dance, on reading the movement of 1,000 spinning masses and finding the path that wouldn't kill them. His hands moved on the controls with a life of their own, making corrections so subtle that the watching crew could barely perceive them. A massive comet loomed before them, too large to avoid. Marcus didn't hesitate. He dove toward it, using its gravity to slingshot around and between two smaller bodies that would have crushed them from either side. The hull groaned in protest, but held. That was too close, Yuki breathed. All of this is too close, Marcus replied, his voice distant and dreamy. He was operating on instinct now, his conscious mind merely observing as his body performed miracles of navigation. They were halfway to C-117 when disaster struck. A comet they had already passed suddenly shattered, struck by another body moving at incredible speed. The fragments sprayed outward in every direction, creating a cloud of debris directly in their path. There was no time to avoid it completely. Marcus did what he could, minimizing the damage, but several large chunks struck the hull. Alarms blared throughout the ship as systems failed and fires broke out in lower decks. Hull breach in Section 7, Thomas reported, his voice tight with controlled panic. Emergency systems are compensating, but we've lost our primary shields. Engines? Marcus asked, never taking his eyes from the field ahead. Still functioning, but we won't survive another hit like that. Marcus processed this information in the space between heartbeats. They were committed now. Turning back would be just as dangerous as pressing forward, and the damage to their shields meant that even minor impacts could be fatal. Keep moving, he decided. We're closer to C-117 than to the station. Our best chance is to reach the stable zone. No one argued. What would be the point? They had all volunteered for this, knowing the risks. Now they would see it through to whatever end awaited them. The remaining distance seemed to stretch into eternity. Every second brought new threats, new close calls that left the crew holding their breath. But Marcus continued his impossible dance, guiding them through chaos that should have been unsurvivable. And then, quite suddenly, the chaos faded. The comets around them moved in slow, stable orbits. The constant barrage of ice and rock stopped, replaced by an eerie calm that seemed almost unnatural after the storm they had weathered. We're through, Elena reported, her voice thick with emotion. We've reached C-117. Marcus finally released the controls and slumped back in his chair. His hands shook violently now, and his breathing was ragged. But when Yuki rushed to his side, concern written on her face, he waved her away. I'm fine, he insisted. Just tired, let's find that device. C-117 was enormous, a mountain of ice and rock that drifted slowly through the protected zone at the heart of the field. The stellar wanderer settled into orbit around it, and Alina began scanning for the energy signature they had been tracking. "Found it," she announced after several tense minutes. "The device is buried about 50 meters below the surface, in a natural cavern near the comet's equator." "Can we reach it?" "I think so. We can land near the cavern entrance and proceed on foot. The gravity is minimal, so we'll need magnetic boots and safety lines." Marcus nodded, already formulating a plan. "Thomas, you and Alina will come with me to disable the device. Yuki, you'll command the ship while we're gone. If anything goes wrong, get the Stellar Wanderer out of here." "And leave you stranded?" Yuki demanded. "Absolutely not." "That's an order, Lieutenant. If we can't disable this device, we need someone to warn the galaxy about this trap. That's more important than any individual life." Yuki's jaw tightened, but she nodded reluctantly. She understood the logic, even if she hated it. The landing party suited up in environmental gear designed for vacuum operations. The suits were bulky but functional, equipped with oxygen supplies, communication systems, and the magnetic boots Alina had mentioned. They also carried equipment for studying and disabling the mysterious device. The descent to C-117's surface was smoother than Marcus had expected. The shuttle they used was designed for planetary landings, and the comet's minimal gravity made for an easy approach. Within minutes, they were standing on the frozen surface, staring at a dark opening in the ice that led downward. "This cavern isn't natural," Alina said, studying her scanner. "Someone carved it out, recently too, based on the residual heat signatures." "Whoever set the trap," Marcus guessed. "Probably. They needed a way to access the device for maintenance or adjustment." They descended into the cavern single file, their helmet lights cutting through the darkness. The walls sparkled with crystalline formations, beautiful but deadly if disturbed. The path twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the comet's heart. After 20 minutes of careful progress, they emerged into a larger chamber. And there, in the center of the space, sat the device that had killed thousands. It was surprisingly small, no larger than a ground vehicle. Its surface was covered with symbols that Marcus didn't recognize, and it pulsed with a soft, blue light that matched the energy readings they had been tracking. "That's not Kelrath design," Alina said immediately, "or human or any species in the Alliance." "Unknown origin?" Thomas asked, approaching the device cautiously. "Completely unknown. This technology is centuries ahead of anything we've seen." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ice surrounding them. They had stumbled onto something much larger than a simple trap. Someone with incredibly advanced technology was operating in this region of space, and they were willing to kill to protect their secrets. "Can you disable it?" he asked. Alina and Thomas exchanged uncertain looks. "We can try," Thomas said finally, "but without understanding the technology, we might make things worse." "Or we might set it off," Alina added grimly. "There could be failsafes we can't detect." Marcus considered their options. They had come too far to turn back now. The device continued to generate the chaotic field, continued to trap anyone who entered this system. If they left it active, more people would die. "Do what you can," he decided. "I'll take responsibility for any consequences." Thomas and Alina approached the device together, their scanners probing its structure and function. They worked in tense silence, occasionally muttering technical terms that Marcus didn't understand. The minutes stretched into hours as they slowly unraveled the device's mysteries. "I think I understand the power system," Thomas said finally. "It's drawing energy from the comet itself, converting ice into fuel through some kind of matter-energy conversion process." "Can you interrupt that process?" "Maybe. If I can create a feedback loop in the power system, It should overload and shut down. Will it explode? Marcus asked. Thomas hesitated. I don't think so. The system seems designed to fail safely, but I can't guarantee anything. Marcus nodded slowly. They had no choice. Do it. Thomas began making adjustments to the device, his movements careful and precise. Elena watched over his shoulder, offering suggestions and warnings as he worked. The blue glow of the device began to flicker, pulsing irregularly as its system struggled against the interference. Then, without warning, the device spoke. A voice emerged from its surface, speaking in a language none of them had ever heard. But somehow, impossibly, they understood every word. Intruders detected. Defense protocol initiated. All biological entities within this system will be eliminated. The chamber began to shake. Outside, on the surface of the comet, the ice cracked and shifted as new energies awakened within the frozen mass. What's happening? Marcus demanded. Elena's face had gone pale. The device has a secondary function. It's not just generating the chaotic field. It's capable of destroying the entire comet and everything near it. Including us, Thomas added grimly. Marcus made a decision in that instant. Thomas, continue working on the shutdown. Elena, help him. I'll buy you time. How? Elena asked desperately. Marcus was already moving toward the device, reaching for the surface that had spoken to them. Maybe I can reason with it, or distract it, just work fast. He placed his hand on the cold metal, and the world dissolved into light. Marcus found himself floating in a vast, empty space. Around him, stars flickered in configurations he didn't recognize, and before him a presence took shape, something vast and ancient and utterly alien. You are not of the creator species, the presence observed. You should not be here. I'm human, Marcus replied, surprised that he could speak in this strange place. I'm Captain Marcus Cole of the Stellar Wanderer. We came to help the Kelrath. The indigenous life forms were eliminated to protect the archive. Your presence threatens the archive. You must also be eliminated. What archive? Marcus asked. What are you protecting? The presence was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, there was something almost like confusion in its tone. You ask questions. The indigenous life forms did not ask questions. They attempted to extract the archive by force. That's not what the Kelrath do, Marcus protested. They're miners, researchers. They would have tried to communicate first. The indigenous life forms sent vessels to investigate the archive location. When these vessels approached, defense protocols were activated. No communication was received. Marcus suddenly understood what had happened. The Kelrath, curious about the artificial object they had detected, had sent ships to investigate. But their approach had been interpreted as an attack, triggering the trap that had killed them all. It was a misunderstanding, he said urgently. The Kelrath weren't trying to attack or steal anything. They wanted to learn to understand, just like me. Learning, understanding. The presence seemed to consider these concepts. These are functions of the creator species. The archive exists to preserve their knowledge until they return. Who are the creators? The ones who came before. The ones who seeded life throughout the cosmos. They left this archive as a gift for those who would follow, for those who proved worthy of their legacy. Marcus felt his heart rate quicken. The creators sounded like an ancient, spacefaring civilization, one that had existed long before any current species had evolved. And this archive, whatever it contained, was their inheritance to the galaxy. How does someone prove worthy? He asked. By demonstrating the qualities of the creator species: curiosity, compassion, the ability to find patterns in chaos and order in entropy. Marcus almost laughed. Find patterns in chaos. He had been doing exactly that for the past several hours. I navigated through your defensive field, he said. Twice. I found the patterns in the comet movements, predicted their trajectories, and guided my ship through safely. Is that what you mean? The presence stirred, and Marcus felt its attention focus on him with terrifying intensity. You achieved this through natural ability, without technological augmentation. Yes, it's something humans can do. We evolved to recognize patterns, to anticipate movement, to solve puzzles. It's part of who we are. A long silence followed. Marcus hung in the void, waiting, wondering if he had said too much or not enough. The stars around him seemed to pulse with energy, as if the archive itself was considering his words. Your species is remarkable, the presence said finally. You possess qualities that the creators valued. You may be the ones they foresaw, the inheritors of their legacy. Does that mean you'll stop trying to kill us? Defense protocols are suspended. The archive welcomes you, Captain Marcus Cole. You and your species have proven worthy. The void dissolved, and Marcus found himself back in the ice cavern, his hand still touching the device. But the shaking had stopped, and the blue glow had changed to a warm, golden light. Thomas and Alina stared at him with wide eyes. What happened? Alina demanded. The device just shut down. All the aggressive readings vanished. I had a conversation, Marcus said, still not quite believing it himself, with whoever or whatever built this thing, and I convinced them we come in peace. Before anyone could respond, the device began to change. Panels opened, revealing compartments filled with crystal memory storage units. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing star charts, technical schematics, and symbols that seemed to contain immense meaning even though they were incomprehensible. It's the archive, Alina breathed. My God, it's all the knowledge of an ancient civilization. The technology alone would advance our species by centuries, maybe millennia. Marcus stared at the treasures before them, understanding that this moment would change history. Humanity had come to help the Kelrath, and had instead discovered something beyond imagination. Because of his ability to find patterns in chaos, because of a skill that humans had evolved over millions of years, they had passed a test that was older than their species. Contact the Stellar Wanderer, he said quietly. Tell Yuki that the threat is over. The field should return to normal soon. As Alina made the call, Marcus looked up at the cavern ceiling, imagining the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, other archives might exist, other tests waiting for species who could prove themselves worthy. And now humanity knew they existed. The creators had seeded life throughout the cosmos and left their knowledge behind as a gift. Thanks to a human captain who could navigate comet fields with nothing but instinct and determination, that gift was finally being claimed. It wasn't the mission they had planned. It wasn't the outcome anyone had expected. But that was the thing about exploration. You never knew what you would find until you were brave enough to look. Marcus Cole smiled, standing in the heart of an ancient archive on a comet that had nearly killed them all. They had come as explorers, and that was exactly what they remained. The return journey through the comet field was almost peaceful. True to the Presence's word, the chaotic energy had dissipated, and the comets were slowly returning to their natural orbits. The Stellar Wanderer collected its landing party and their precious cargo of crystal memory units, then began the careful process of navigating back to the Kelrath station. Yuki met Marcus at the airlock, her face a mixture of relief and lingering worry. The sensor readings during your time in that cavern were insane, she said. For about 10 minutes, we couldn't detect any life signs from your position. We thought you were dead. I was somewhere else, Marcus replied, still processing the experience himself. Talking to the archive's guardian, I'm not entirely sure it happened in normal space. You're going to have to explain that in detail, Yuki insisted. Preferably after you've had food, sleep, and a medical checkup. Marcus couldn't argue with that. The exhaustion he had been holding at bay finally crashed over him like a wave, and he nearly stumbled as they walked toward the bridge. Yuki caught his arm, steadying him without comment. Dr. Chen was waiting with a portable medical scanner and a stern expression. "Captain, your stress hormones are through the roof, your blood pressure is elevated, and you show signs of extreme physical and mental exhaustion. I'm ordering you to bed rest for a minimum of 12 hours. After we send a message to the consortium," Marcus countered. "They need to know what happened here and what we found." "I can handle that," Alina offered. "I've already started cataloging the archive materials. The preliminary findings alone will keep the scientific community busy for decades." Marcus wanted to argue, but his body betrayed him. His knees buckled, and only Yuki's quick reflexes kept him from falling. "Fine," he admitted. "Send the message. Wake me if anything happens." He slept for 16 hours, longer than any rest he had taken in years. When he finally awoke, the stellar wanderer was still in orbit around the Kelrath station, but the situation had changed dramatically. "We've received responses from 47 different species," Yuki reported when he arrived on the bridge. "Everyone wants to know about the archive. The Consortium Council is convening an emergency session to discuss the implications." "What about the Kelrath?" Yuki's expression softened. "Their government has sent a formal message of thanks. They're devastated by the loss of their people, but they understand now that it was a tragic accident, not an attack. They're requesting permission to join the archive recovery effort." "Of course," Marcus said immediately. "This discovery belongs to everyone. The creators intended it that way." "That's what Alina's been telling them." Yuki smiled slightly. "She's become quite the ambassador. I think she's fielded questions from a dozen different species since yesterday." Marcus looked out the viewport at the slowly stabilizing comet field. The debris from the destroyed Kelrath ships was still visible, a somber reminder of the tragedy that had brought them here. But beyond that debris, the massive form of C-117 drifted serenely, holding its ancient secrets. "Have we learned anything else from the archive materials?" "Alina can explain the details better than I can," Yuki replied. "But the basic summary is that the creators were an ancient civilization that existed billions of years ago, long before any current species evolved. They traveled the galaxy, seeding life on countless worlds. And before they departed, for whatever reason, they left archives like this one scattered throughout the cosmos." "Departed? Where did they go?" "That's one of the things the archive doesn't explain. Alina thinks they might have ascended to some higher plane of existence, or traveled to another galaxy, or simply died out. The records are incomplete." Marcus considered this information. A civilization that had existed for billions of years, that had seeded life throughout the galaxy, that had left their knowledge behind as a gift for worthy successors. It was almost too much to comprehend. "What about the test?" he asked. "The archive said we proved worthy by navigating the comet field. Are there similar tests at other archive locations?" "Possibly. Alina found references to multiple archive sites, each with its own challenges. The creators apparently believed that any species capable of claiming their legacy would need to demonstrate certain qualities first." "Pattern recognition," Marcus murmured. "That's what the Guardian mentioned, the ability to find order in chaos." "Which is apparently something humans excel at," Yuki said with a hint of pride. "The Kelrath's navigation systems, the most advanced in the galaxy, couldn't handle the chaotic field. But you could, using nothing but your own brain." It was a humbling thought. For 30 years, humanity had been the newcomers in the galactic community, respected for their potential but not yet proven among the older, more established species. Now, because of an evolved instinct that they had always taken for granted, they had accomplished something that no other species could. Over the following weeks, the archive's significance became clearer. The crystal memory units contained vast amounts of information about everything from advanced physics to biological engineering to philosophy and art. The creators had documented their entire civilization, their discoveries, their mistakes, their hopes for the future. But the most important revelation was also the most troubling. The archives weren't just repositories of knowledge. They were waypoints, markers that pointed toward something greater. Each archive contained fragments of a larger puzzle, a map that, when assembled, would reveal the location of the creator's final gift, a place called the Nexus. "We don't know exactly what the Nexus is," Alina explained during a briefing with the Consortium Council representatives. "The archive describes it as the heart of the creator's legacy, the culmination of everything they learned during their existence. To reach it, we would need to find and access multiple archives across the galaxy, passing the tests at each one." "And you believe humans are uniquely suited for these tests?" asked Ambassador Kelrath, the leader of the species who had lost so much in this system. "Based on the first test, yes," Alina replied. "The creators valued certain cognitive abilities that humans possess in unusual abundance: pattern recognition, creative problem-solving, the capacity to function under extreme stress. These are all traits that our evolution emphasized." "Many species possess such traits," another ambassador pointed out. "True," Alina acknowledged, "but the level at which humans demonstrate them is remarkable. Captain Cole navigated a chaotic field that destroyed 20 Kelrath ships specifically designed for such environments. He did it twice, the second time while exhausted and with a damaged vessel. The archive's guardian specifically cited his achievement as proof of worthiness." The discussion continued for hours, debating the implications of the discovery and the proper way to proceed. In the end, the Council reached a consensus. The search for additional archives would be a joint effort by all willing species, but humans would take the lead in facing whatever tests awaited. Marcus watched the proceedings with mixed emotions. Pride in what he had accomplished, certainly, but also grief for the thousands of Kelrath who had died, beings who might have been explorers and scientists just like him. Their curiosity had triggered a trap that wasn't meant for them, and they had paid the ultimate price. He found Ambassador Kelrath in a quiet observation lounge after the meeting, staring out at the stars with an expression of profound sadness. "I'm sorry," Marcus said simply. "I wish we could have arrived sooner, before the field was activated." The Kelrath ambassador turned to face him. His species was tall and thin, with large, dark eyes that seemed to hold depths of emotion that humans could barely comprehend. "The fault is not yours, Captain. Our people approached the archive with tools designed for mining, not diplomacy. They saw a puzzle and tried to solve it with force. Perhaps that is why they failed where you succeeded. They didn't deserve to die for that mistake." "No," the ambassador agreed, "but death does not care about deserving. It comes for all of us eventually, regardless of our intentions or worthiness." He paused, his large eyes reflecting the starlight. "My people will mourn our lost ones. We will honor their memory and learn from their sacrifice. And then we will join you in the search for more archives, for the Nexus, for whatever the creators left behind." "Even after everything that happened." "Because of everything that happened," the ambassador corrected. "Our people died pursuing knowledge. What better way to honor them than by continuing that pursuit?" Marcus nodded slowly, understanding. The Kelrath had lost much, but they chose to look forward rather than backward. It was a lesson worth remembering. In the months that followed, the Stellar Wanderer became famous throughout the galaxy. The ship that had navigated the impossible, the crew that had proven humanity's worth, the captain who had spoken with an ancient guardian and claimed a cosmic inheritance. Every species wanted to hear their story, to study their achievement, to understand how they had succeeded where others failed. But for Marcus, the fame was secondary to the mission. He had tasted something in that ice cavern on C-117, a connection to something vast and ancient and full of possibility. The creators had left their legacy for beings like him, beings who could find patterns in chaos and turn threats into opportunities. The Nexus waited, somewhere beyond the stars. Other archives remained to be found, other tests to be passed. And humanity, the young species that had barely joined the galactic community, would lead the way. "Ready for departure, Captain," Yuki reported from her station. Marcus took one last look at the Kelrath system, at the comet field that had nearly killed them, at the memorial satellites that now marked the locations where 20 ships had been destroyed. Then he turned away, facing forward toward the unknown. "Set course for our next destination," he ordered. "We have a lot of exploring to do." The Stellar Wanderer's engines powered up, and the ship leapt toward the stars. Behind them, the first archive continued to pulse with golden light, a beacon for all who might follow. Ahead of them lay mysteries that would change the galaxy forever. And at the helm, a human captain smiled, already searching for the next pattern in the cosmos, the next puzzle waiting to be solved. Earth's explorers had navigated the comet field. Skill had turned threat into opportunity. And now, with the Creator's legacy calling them forward, there was no telling what they might achieve. The story was just beginning.